My name is Ethan Voss, and I was 27 when my sister decided I didn't exist, at least as far as her wedding was concerned. I got the text first. We've already decided, you're not part of the wedding anymore. I stared at it, calm, almost detached, while my phone buzzed nonstop with laughing emojis from the family group chat. They were mocking me, celebrating my exclusion like it was some kind of victory. My stomach twisted, but I didn't reply. Not yet. Silence would do the work for me. The wedding had been a big deal, months in the planning, with a venue that required deposits and contracts. My sister had assumed I wouldn't notice the small details, the back-end logistics, the numbers, the commitments she had made. I sat back in my apartment, letting the muted sunlight spill across the floor. The city outside moved obliviously, and I breathed deeply, feeling a strange satisfaction settle in. I called the venue. "Hello," I said calmly. "I'm checking on a deposit for the upcoming wedding under the name Voss. It seems there may have been a cancellation request." The person on the other end hesitated. I didn't rush them. I let the pause stretch. And then I smiled, quietly, imagining the exact moment when my sister's smug grin would falter, when the family group chat would go silent. They thought this was a joke. They were about to learn it was anything but. The voice on the phone finally returned, hesitant. "Yes, it seems the deposit hasn't been processed yet. Are you authorized to make changes?" I let out a soft, controlled laugh. "Authorized? Absolutely. I'm the account holder." There was a pause long enough for me to savor it. My sister had assumed I was powerless, that I would stew in anger and do nothing. They hadn't counted on me knowing exactly how things worked behind the scenes. I transferred the deposit to another date, effectively freezing the wedding plans without a word. The venue confirmed everything in writing. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, feeling the thrill of quiet control ripple through me. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed again. Another mocking message from the group chat. "Guess Ethan finally realized he's out." Faced with tears of joy, I smiled faintly and replied simply, "Check with the venue before laughing. You might be surprised." I didn't have to explain anything. The seed was planted. Later, I imagined their panic. My sister refreshing her emails, seeing the updated confirmation, realizing her meticulous plans were suddenly in jeopardy. The group chat would explode. Her carefully orchestrated event, the one she thought excluded me entirely, was now in my hands. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt justified. Years of being ignored, mocked, overlooked, and dismissed had taught me patience and precision. And this was the first domino. They would soon understand that underestimating me had consequences far beyond a simple text or laugh. By evening, the group chat had erupted. My sister's messages were frantic. "Ethan, what did you do?" followed by a string of angry emojis. My parents tried to mediate, but their words lacked authority. I had outmaneuvered them without confrontation. I sat on my balcony, city lights reflecting off the glass, a glass of wine in hand. The cool air brushed against my face, sharpening my focus. Their panic was almost delicious. Years of belittling me, ignoring my achievements, mocking my plans. Now, for the first time, I held the power. My sister called. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent a calm text. "The deposit has been rescheduled. Check with the venue for details." Her response came instantly, typing bubbles appearing and disappearing, growing frantic. "Why would you do this? This is my wedding." I didn't reply. Silence, after all, was the most effective response. Then came the emails, from the venue, addressed to my sister. The panic was real now. The dates were locked in, the deposit reassigned, and the countdown to her dream day hung in uncertainty. I imagined her sitting in her room, phone in hand, the realization hitting that she had underestimated me, just like our parents had for years. For years, I had been the overlooked sibling, the quiet one, the one no one expected to succeed. Now finally they saw me, not as the brother to dismiss, but as a force to respect. And just like that, the first ripple of their carefully constructed world began to crack. The next morning, I received a call from the venue manager. His tone was polite, professional, but there was a hint of surprise. "Mr. Voss, the deposit transfer went through smoothly. I assume your sister has been informed?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of control settle around me. "Yes," I said evenly. "She should have all the details now." As I hung up, my phone buzzed nonstop with messages from my family. My sister's panic was obvious. "Ethan, you can't do this." "Mom, Dad, he's ruining everything." I didn't respond. I let them stew. They thought their mockery and exclusion would hurt me. Now, the quiet calm in my apartment was the reminder that I wasn't just present in their lives. I was untouchable. I thought about all the years of being sidelined, the moments when they laughed at my ambitions, dismissed my ideas, or told me I wasn't good enough. This wasn't revenge for the sake of cruelty. It was a lesson served quietly but clearly. Later, I saw my sister's posts on social media, her perfect dress, her flawless wedding plans, her excitement, all now overshadowed by a looming uncertainty she couldn't control. And my parents? They realized the child they ignored had grown into someone who didn't need them to validate his life. I poured a glass of wine, the city lights outside soft and steady. Silence had done what anger never could. It had made them see me clearly for the first time. Their laughter had ended. By midday, the reality had begun to sink in for my family. My sister was frantic, sending me one message after another, each more desperate than the last. "Ethan, please. You can't do this. The guests are already booked." I didn't respond. Instead, I reviewed the confirmation emails from the venue again, making sure everything was airtight. Every detail, every date, every clause, perfectly aligned to my advantage. They had assumed I was powerless, that I would cower, beg, or cry. I had learned long ago that calm precision was far more devastating than shouting. My parents finally called, voices trembling. "Ethan, we didn't realize, we thought." I interrupted, steady and controlled. "You didn't realize because you never paid attention. You assumed I was insignificant, forgettable, easily dismissed. But now I'm visible. And visibility comes with responsibility, for you to act correctly or not at all." There was silence on the line, thick and heavy. I could imagine the weight of guilt settling in their chests, just as the panic had settled in my sister's mind. Later I checked social media. Guests were confused, some even canceling, unsure if the wedding date had shifted. The chaos I had orchestrated quietly, legally, and efficiently was unfolding exactly as I had planned. I poured a glass of wine, sitting by the window watching the sunlight fade into dusk. Revenge hadn't been cruel, just inevitable. And the realization hit me fully. Sometimes being underestimated for years creates a power no one sees coming. They thought excluding me would hurt me. Instead, it revealed exactly who had underestimated whom. By evening, my parents had arrived at my apartment, cautiously, nervously, as if stepping into enemy territory. My sister trailed behind them, face flushed with embarrassment and anger. I opened the door slowly, letting them take in the sight of my life, the warm lighting, the tastefully arranged apartment, and the quiet air of control that surrounded everything. They had assumed I was powerless, a side character in their family drama. Now they could feel the truth. I was the one holding the pen. Mom spoke first, voice trembling. "Ethan, we didn't think we're sorry." I raised a hand, cutting her off. "I don't need apologies. I need understanding. You ignored me for years. You dismissed me. You laughed at me. Recognition isn't something you give after the fact. It's something you earn. And you never did." My father shifted uncomfortably, glancing at my sister, who suddenly looked much smaller than she had in all those photos and videos. We made mistakes," he said, voice softening. I smiled faintly, almost kindly. "Mistakes are part of life. But ignoring the consequences is another. Now you see the results of your choices. The wedding deposit is rescheduled. The plans are in flux. And it's on you to fix what you broke." Silence fell. They could feel it, the weight of years, of negligence, of underestimation. For once they were not in control. The child they mocked had become the master of his own life. And they understood, finally, the cost of their oversight, in the quietest, most unshakable way possible. The following days were quiet but tense. My sister attempted to salvage her wedding plans, but the uncertainty I had introduced lingered like a shadow over every decision. Guests hesitated to book, vendors needed confirmations, and the meticulous schedule she had depended on began to unravel. My parents kept calling, their voices shaky. "Ethan, we'll make it right. Tell us what we can do." I responded carefully, calmly, each word deliberate. "There's nothing to fix. You made your choices years ago. The consequences are here now. You either accept them or you continue to watch." No yelling, no pleading, no dramatics. Just quiet truth. They could feel the weight of it, the realization that the child they ignored had grown into someone untouchable by their whims. Every day I watched the subtle panic set in. My sister's smile in photos was tighter, forced. My parents' messages were shorter, hesitant, full of self-conscious attempts to regain control they no longer had. I spent my evenings alone, sipping wine, letting the city lights reflect off the windows, thinking about all those times I had been dismissed, and how patient patience had become my weapon. Revenge hadn't been about chaos. It had been about awareness. About letting them feel, quietly, the impact of their neglect, the cost of underestimating someone they once thought insignificant. And the most satisfying part? They were learning the lesson without me having to lift a hand. I had become the consequence of their own choices. They had mocked me, excluded me, doubted me. And now, quietly, invisibly, I was the one in control. It was the morning of what was supposed to be my sister's wedding. The venue had sent final confirmations to her email, only the dates had been frozen under my name. The chaos was subtle but unmistakable. Guests were confused, vendors hesitant. My sister's perfectly planned day teetered on the edge of collapse. My parents arrived at my apartment once more, faces pale, unsure. They had come expecting apologies, explanations, maybe even tears. Instead they found calm. I greeted them quietly, letting the silence do the heavy lifting. "Good morning," I said. "I assume you've checked your emails." They nodded, words failing. The realization was settling in. The child they dismissed, the sibling they mocked, had orchestrated this moment without a single harsh word. Just precision, patience, and understanding the power of overlooked knowledge. My sister's face turned ashen. "Ethan, this isn't funny." I shook my head softly. "It's not about humor. It's about consequence. Years of ignoring me, mocking me, underestimating me, led to this. I didn't ruin anything. I merely reminded you that I exist, and I decide when and how to be included." Mom whispered, almost to herself, "We never realized." I let the words hang. They felt the weight of every ignored birthday, every belittled success, every time they assumed I couldn't act. Now they were facing the result of those assumptions. I poured myself a glass of wine, watched the sunlight catch the rim of the glass, and felt a serene satisfaction. No chaos, no cruelty, only balance restored. The sibling they dismissed had become the master of his own story. The lesson was learned, quietly but permanently.